The American pastor imprisoned in Iran for his faith must serve 8 years behind bars. The U.S. State Department says Pastor Saeed Abedini was sentenced Sunday. Today, there are renewed calls for his release. Here's Charlene Israel.
Even after months of being misled or kept in the dark by the Iranian government, Pastor Saeed's wife Naghmeh says her husband's sentence still comes as a blow. In a statement released after the Iranian court ruling, she said the promise of his release was a lie. We should not trust the empty words of promises put out by the Iranian government. These false hopes amount to psychological torture. You don't want to trust them, but they build a glimmer of hope before the crushing blow. According to the American Center for Law and Justice, Pastor Saeed was verbally sentenced by Iran's notorious hanging judge. The Iranian court convicted Pastor Saeed of threatening the national security of Iran through his leadership in Christian house churches. He will serve his time in Evin prison, known as one of the most brutal prisons in Iran. The ACLJ represents Pastor Saeed's wife Naghmeh and their 2 children. In a statement Sunday, Executive Director Jordan Sekulow said, "Here's the troubling reality. We have a U.S. citizen who has been beaten and tortured since his imprisonment last fall, now facing 8 years in Evin prison, one of the most brutal prisons in Iran, a harsh sentence in a notorious prison, likely facing life-threatening torture and abuse at the hands of the Iranian regime, simply because of his Christian faith." Meanwhile, the U.S. State Department is calling on Iran to respect Pastor Saeed's human rights and release him. A spokesman said, "We condemn Iran's continued violation of the universal right of freedom of religion." The ACLJ will continue to fight for Pastor Saeed's release, calling on the State Department and the White House to engage further. Pastor Saeed's wife, Naghmeh, says she won't rest until her husband is home. "We must now pursue every effort, turn every rock, and not stop until Saeed is safely on American soil." Charlene Israel, CBN News.
And that decision in Iran comes just a couple of weeks after a court in Egypt sentenced a family to 15 years in prison for converting back to Christianity from Islam. An Egyptian newspaper reports a woman and her 7 children were sentenced recently under the Muslim Brotherhood regime. The woman converted from Christianity to Islam when she got married. She planned to go back to Christianity, though, when her husband died. The Islamic government even sentenced the clerks who processed the family's new identity cards. Pro-lifers across this country marked the 40th anniversary of Roe v. Wade over the weekend. That is the U.S. Supreme Court decision that legalized abortion nationwide. Americans came together across the country to support the unborn, and hundreds of thousands took part in the annual March for Life in Washington. CBN's Paul Strand was there.
As pro-life marchers from all over the nation gathered, they had some victories to celebrate. These days, there are 25% fewer abortions than a couple of decades ago. In the early 90s, there were 1.6 million a year. Now it's down to 1.2 million and holding.
And while the number of abortions is down, the number of American youth who are pro-life is up. A good sign for the future health of the movement.
The March for Life's youthful new director, Jeannie Monahan, also sees hope at the state level.
Almost 200 positive pro-life bills have been enacted in the last 3 years alone at the level of the state. So I think we're seeing a new time where we're winning really one young person in one state at a time.
One of those pro-life young people, 19-year-old Ruben Verostaki, began researching online.
What abortion was, how it looked, and I knew I had to do something about it. And so I started falling more in love with the movement, and I knew I just wanted to change this nation and abolish abortion one day.
But this overwhelmingly Christian crowd knows it still has a long way to go, even when it comes to women in their own churches. 65% of women getting abortion say they're Christians. 37% of them are Protestant, 28% Catholic. Pro-lifers know research shows many of these women who take their baby's life will suffer psychological and emotional wounds for years.
Abortion actually takes the life of one and hurts the other.
So Monahan says 55 million abortions have given America
a huge amount of people that are walking wounded from having made this choice. And again, there is always hope and healing, but it's a tremendous problem.
Paul Strand, CBN News, reporting from the March for Life.
The British government has introduced a bill to legalize same-sex marriage. Lawmakers will vote on that bill next month. It exempts clergy in the Church of England from having to perform the ceremonies. Experts say the measure is likely to become law, however.